Even if you're an avid fan of college football, you may not know much about the Sun Belt Conference outside of Coastal Carolina's recent success or Appalachian State getting ranked in the AP poll. But throughout the past decade, this conference has been slowly building its way up the ranks, becoming, in my opinion, the premier group of 5 conference in college football. Here's how they did it. To understand this transformation, we have to go back to 2012. The state of the Sun Belt Conference in between 2000 and 2012 was, to put it lightly, a raging dumpster fire. The then Sun Belt was made up of 10 schools: Florida Atlantic University, Florida International University, North Texas, Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Lafayette, Arkansas State, Troy, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and new upstart program, South Alabama. Considered by many to be the absolute bottom of the barrel and the statistically worst conference in FBS, the Sun Belt was full of perennial bottom feeders and programs that just couldn't compete at the same level against big-time programs. In the early 2010s, the Sun Belt was left in a desperate place after the Big East collapse, kicking off a major bout of conference realignment. 5 Sun Belt members decided to jump ship in the 2012 and 13 seasons to Conference USA. These schools were FAU, FIU, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and North Texas. This left the Sun Belt in dire straits, needing at least 8 teams to remain FBS. This was a major turning point for the Sun Belt, and if they wanted to survive, they had to act fast. In 2012, as teams announced their departure from the league, the Sun Belt added another upstart program, Georgia State out of Atlanta, as well as FCS program Texas State, who had recently spent $33 million to expand their stadium capacity to 30,000 seats. Neither of these teams were immediately successful and managed to merely keep the Sun Belt alive, neither bringing a large fan base or any real success to the league. In the 2013 offseason, as Western Kentucky bolted to Conference USA, the Sun Belt announced it would be adding 4 new schools to the league. 2 permanent conference members, FCS powerhouses Georgia Southern and Appalachian State, and 2 football-only members, New Mexico State and Idaho. Why were adding these schools so important? Because Georgia Southern and Appalachian State were absolute monsters at the FCS level. Both schools are arch rivals with passionate fan bases, and they have a combined 9 national championships between them. In 2014, Georgia Southern won the Sun Belt in its first year as a member, and Appalachian State, as of today, has 4 Sun Belt titles. The talent and success these 2 programs brought fundamentally changed the quality of Sun Belt football, seeing both teams having multiple winning seasons and bowl bids. The 2017 season saw Troy become the first AP Top 25 team in the history of the Sun Belt, after a 10-win season that included a win over LSU. Also, Coastal Carolina joined the Sun Belt this year, moving up from the FCS. Meanwhile, Idaho failed to meet expectations and subsequently dropped out of FBS, going to the Big Sky Conference at the FCS level. Additionally, football-only member New Mexico State, finding itself stranded far outside the Sun Belt geographical footprint, became an FBS independent. Starting in 2018, the Sun Belt announced it would be splitting into 2 divisions, the East Division, including Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, and Troy, and the West Division, including Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Lafayette, South Alabama, Arkansas State, and Texas State. After 2018, there were no more changes to the membership of the conference, but it would mark the beginning of the Sun Belt's climb to relevancy. App State was ranked in the top 25 in 2018 and 2019, and nearly had an undefeated season in 2019, which saw them go 13-1, beating 2 Power 5 schools, North Carolina and South Carolina, but losing to arch-rival Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt, finishing the season ranked number 19 in the nation. In 2020, the Sun Belt managed to play nearly all of their conference games, despite COVID-19 restrictions, and because of this, many Sun Belt games made it onto national TV. And we all know the story of Coastal Carolina bursting onto the scene with an 11-1 record, beating BYU and ending the season ranked number 14 in the country. That brings us to the modern day. We are in the middle of the 2021 offseason, and the University of Louisiana Raging Cajuns just won the Sun Belt Championship and finished the season ranked number 16 in the country. And after this most recent round of realignment, 4 new members are set to join the Sun Belt: Southern Miss, Old Dominion, Marshall, and FCS powerhouse James Madison University. With the addition of these new schools, the Sun Belt footprint now spans from Texas to West Virginia and includes great regional rivalries and programs that have dedicated fan bases. The new schools bring football prominence and good brands to a Sunbelt league that was already on the rise. Not only this, but the fan bases can reasonably travel to other Sunbelt games, with schools in each division having multiple games under a 6-hour drive away or less. Programs like App State, Coastal Carolina, and Georgia Southern are also outpacing Power 5 programs in social media growth, seeing their following explode over the last 2 years. With App State and Coastal Carolina having more followers on Twitter than some teams in Power 5 conferences, like Duke, Northwestern, Wake Forest, and Boston College. Suffice to say that I believe the Sun Belt came out on top of the G5 conference realignment, especially compared to how other leagues fared. The MAC has stagnated and not added any teams, which isn't necessarily bad, but they have failed to produce good on-field results in the past few years. The Mountain West is still really strong, but is under the threat of Boise State being poached by a P5 conference, leaving them without their premier brand. And with the Americans' best teams being rated by the Big 12, and Conference USA crumbling into a mishmash of schools that have small fan bases and no travelable games outside of UTEP and New Mexico State, I think the Sun Belt has earned its place at the top of the G5 and will only get better in the next few years. Please feel free to voice your opinions on the Sun Belt and if you agree or disagree with me. Thanks for watching.